You're listening to LVB Podcast Show with your friend, advocate, and host, Alvaro.
Hi and welcome to LVB Show. My name is Alvaro and I'm very happy to be with you tonight. Before I introduce our guest, I just want to say thank you so much to people listening from the United States, from Canada, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Latin America, from Africa, from Europe, and everywhere else where they are listening to the show right now. If you want to be on the show, you can email me at lowvisionbureau@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at lowvisionbureau. Tonight, we have the privilege to welcome in a company in Israel, which is very exciting for me. I have always admired Israel, and it's a privilege to have someone from right here, right, like right, and then here, like from hearing, so it's Hear. And we have Idan Meir from Israel. Thank you so much, Idan, for being with us today.
My very pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
My pleasure, Idan. And what can you tell us about your company?
So right here, for the listeners who never heard about us before, is an audible wayfinding system that has been designed specifically for people with orientation challenges, including the blind and visually impaired, of course. And we like to think of ourselves as some sort of an audible ramp, if you will, for people with orientation challenges, again, for the blind and visually impaired. Basically, it's a free app. It's a free app on both Android and iPhone that is also using GPS, but also iBeacon technology to allow our users to find their way in public spaces, whether if it's a university, shopping mall, or just a small store. And the whole idea behind what we're doing is to provide independence. I think maybe I should have started with that. The whole idea of right here is to allow our users feel and be more independent wherever they go and for free using their app.
Idan, can you tell us some of the main features of this application?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I will start just from an overview. Basically, the whole system that we developed has three main components. One is the free app for our users, which I'll elaborate more in a second. Secondly, is the beacons. Is the small sensors in the size of a matchbox that we install in the venue. And thirdly, there is an online portal for the venue manager to control and edit and manage all the information that later on will be displayed audibly to our users. Now, from getting back to the app, the whole experience basically starts at home, which means that our users can find their desired destination in the app from home, whether it's be their favorite shopping mall, for example. Once they find this place in the app, they can tap on it, and the app will ask them two things. One, if they want to simulate this location before arriving there. So we'll give them the information about how it looks like and what is going on in this shopping mall. And secondly, is how they would like to get there. So we're already integrating with apps like Move It for public transportation, as well as taxi services like Uber, Lyft, Get, and others. And basically, once they tap on that, there is a request that is sending to their favorite public transportation app, taking them from their current location, home, for instance, to their desired location, which they picked. For example, this shopping mall I've mentioned. Once they actually arriving there, and by the way, they can also go there with our outdoor navigation. We also have an outdoor navigation on iPhone, currently only on iPhone at the moment, soon on Android as well. Once they're really actually arriving to the venue that is accessible with their system, the real value, I would say, or the real magic of right here is come into play. And the idea is that we allow our users to hear four main things. The first one is answering the question, where am I? So, for example, you are at the main entrance to this shopping mall. Okay, we will usually elaborate a bit more than that. Information like the doors are pushing doors, or the door is a revolving door, or an automated door, or other information that we believe is important to our users. But basically, we're answering the very basic questions of where am I. Secondly, we give the user information about what is here. So, for example, if this mall have 2 floors, we will mention that. If the if the open hours are from certain times, we might be mentioning that as well. So in every location, it's a bit different. In universities, for example, we sometimes give classrooms directions, or in other use cases, like for example in restaurants, we give information about the menu. So in every location, it's a bit different. But as I said, the first question is where am I, and the second question that we answer is what is here. Thirdly, which is also very unique to us, is no matter where the user is pointing with his smartphone 360 degrees around him to every direction, the app will give him information about what is there and what distance. So, for example, if we're in the main entrance to this shopping mall and we're pointing with our smartphone straight ahead, it might say to the elevators continue in this direction for 100 feet. Okay, or if we're pointing to another direction, it might say to the restroom continue in this direction for 40 feet. Once we'll arrive to that next point of interest, we will probably going to meet the next beacon that we installed, or the next accessible spot, as we call it, and get the additional or further information and directional information from there. So as I said, the first question is where am I? The second question that we answered is what is here? And thirdly is what's around me. More than that, the app does a few more things. One is the ability to call for local assistance. So if the user is in this mall again, instead of going to Google and then searching for this mall and then for the contact and try to find someone there in the mall to help him with something, they will probably going to have, in most of our projects, a call for assistance button where they can just tap this button and have a phone call with the most relevant person in the area. So think about, again, a hotel or in a hotel, it's probably going to be the reception. In a university, it might be one person in the east side and another person in the west side. So being able to call for assistance is another feature. And I would say that are the main, but of course we have more into the app.
That's very exciting for our listeners. And one of the things that comes to mind, I think it is this technology. For how long have you been using it?
I think we're now running almost 4 years as a startup company. The sensors that we're installing usually have about 4 years of a lifespan, which means that we're now renewing some of our initial projects that we've done 4 years ago. We're very proud to grow in the past 4 years as a bootstrap company as well, very fast, I would say, or fast, relatively very fast. We now have over 1,000 locations, and among them, I can say we have in many different sectors. We are working with large universities, large shopping malls, retailers, hospitals, and others. So we've gained a lot of, I would say, experience and know-how about how turning a public venue into an audibly accessible environment, mostly again for the blind and visually impaired, but as well as for anyone with orientation challenges. So these days I can say, while most of our focus is towards international markets, mostly English-speaking markets, the app is in any case is supporting 9 different languages. which means that if you're speaking Portuguese or Spanish or French or any other language among our 9 languages, you'll be able to enjoy the app, which sometimes, language barrier could be also in many ways an orientation challenge. I always give an example of I usually give this example for Western people about imagining themselves in a Chinese airport without knowing the language. You might see well, you might don't have any cognitive disabilities to read it, like dyslexia, but because you don't know Chinese, you might be feeling lost. So here's another use case where Right Here can really help you.
Idan, I'm thinking about part of the description of the application on the App Store on iOS that says that you can navigate outdoors to points of interest. Can you tell us how?
Yes, so that's recent. That's a fairly recent feature that we've added. So I'm happy you've asked about it. This feature, by the way, is currently available only on iPhone. The outdoor ability we currently have only on iPhone. So for our listeners who's looking to try it out, you'll find it only on iPhone. We basically integrated with two resources. One is the OpenStreetMaps database, and secondly is with Apple Maps. And together, by utilizing both of them, we're allowing our users to navigate outdoors with Right Here, based on these technologies and based on GPS, of course. I would highly recommend, the listeners to try it out. First, because we're looking, first to have the feedback. We're always looking to that. But secondly, because I think we've done something very beautiful there with the UI and UX. It's sometimes hard to explain it over an interview, but those who will try it will immediately find it. And I'll try to explain, for example, there are certain indicators that we've put much more handy into the user's experience, like the accuracy of the GPS and the direction you're facing, as well as information regarding what's around you. So yeah, that's fairly new feature in Right Here. And Alvaro, I want to maybe clarify one more thing that is I might miss in the beginning.
Sure.
One of the mottos we have it Right Here is that we don't believe that our users need to pay for the world to be accessible. We think that this is our society duty, which means that companies, organizations, governments, and as a society as a whole need to make sure that everyone is included, and not putting this duty on certain people. And from that reason, the app is 100% free. It will always be free, and we are really looking to work closely with the users. We already have a nice list of we call them powerful users or power users that working together with us on making this happen, on making more venues accessible, on making the app more accessible, on making the overall vision a reality. So our business model is not charging from the users. We are also not collecting any data from our users. We are charging only the venues, just like venues are used to pay for ramps for wheelchairs. It's about time that they will start to think and put in the blind and visually impaired community in the equation and pay for their own ramp. So it's really important to clarify that.
That's very important. I agree, Dan. And thank you for the job you are doing, because, as you say, for our listeners, there are other kind of business models out there, and your business model is not charging the people with the disability. So that's interesting to know. There are many business models out there, and everything is obviously legit, but this one is interesting, obviously, for most of the people in the community.
Exactly, and I think, one way I like to think about is in a way some sort of, while the app is not an open source, we want to give the feeling for our users that it's a mutual vision, it's a mutual goal for us and for our community to work together into making this vision a reality. So I invite all listeners that now listening to us. I might give the details in the end, but I can also give it right away. It's basically done at right here. You can contact me personally. I will tell you one more anecdote, Alvaro.
Sure.
One of the reasons that we call ourselves right here, and as you said in the beginning, it's here like hearing, is to remind ourselves as a company that the right thing to do is to hear our users, first of all, and to hear the venues, and to hear everyone who can help us in making it happen. So not just hearing, but also listening. And again, that's a very warm welcome to anyone listening to us to contact us regarding any ideas that we'd like to see in the app, or any suggestions of new location in this area that we'd like to have accessible.
Idan, I would like to talk about GPS accuracy. You were telling us before that you have this new feature for iPhone about indoor navigation to points of interest using this open map thing. Can you tell us a little bit about the accuracy of that service? Does people need to download any specific map? How does that work, and how is the accuracy?
No, well, that's a good question. I would say that way. First, they don't need to download any additional app. Right here is enough. We're integrating the other technologies in the background. So, from the user perspective, there is no need to download any additional app. Only the Right Here app. GPS is it can be tricky. Sometimes you have more accuracy than other times. It's many times depends on where you are and what's the coverage. The satellites are there, and because of that, what we've done with Right Here, when we recognize that the accuracy or the connection or the exposure to the satellites are not very high, which means it causes to lower accuracy, we indicate that our users. So they always know what is the level of accuracy that they're having with GPS. Of course, we cannot control the satellites, so that's beyond our ability. But what we can do is at least indicate what is the level of accuracy of where you are, and it can be changed in different areas. One more thing I can mention with that regard, because if it's popped up already, maybe two things. One of the interesting features that we've added into the outdoor navigation is something that we call recordings or personal landmarks. And the idea is that, let's say, Alvaro, I would like to, just meet you somewhere. Let's say that we would like to meet in some coffee shop. And each time I'm going to this coffee shop, I'm getting confused. And in one corner, I always turn right instead of left. Do you know this feeling? Have you ever had this feeling before?
Of course.
Yeah. So yeah, that's also happening to me in many cases, and I'm a sighted person. So as I told you in the beginning, orientation challenge can be anyone. So right. So what the recording does is, next time you're going to be in that corner, you can record to yourself a note saying, in this corner you should turn left instead of turning right. And then next time you will come there, it will notify you, Alvaro, this corner you should turn left instead of right. It's like a personal reminder or personal note that is location based. It's personal. No one else will hear this notification when coming there. And I think this type of landmark is very, very helpful to many of our users when we can see that also, that using it in their journeys in day-to-day lives. So that one point I wanted to mention regarding outdoor navigation. And the other one, if I may, is a fairly recent project that we just recently done in Tel Aviv, here in Israel, in the main street. So the city of Tel Aviv decided to turn one of its main streets into audible accessible street. So what we've done there, we basically deployed a few hundred of beacons along the street to cover locations and areas where they needed to be more accurate in terms of coverage, more accurate, and cover more details. If there's certain, monuments or certain other points of interest that the city was carrying and important for them, we've added into the system. So that's, they call it, and I think with a good reason, it's the first audible street for the blind and visually impaired. And we're now getting the feedback from this street, and it's very, very exciting to hear what our users are saying about it.
Idan, there's something that I want to ask you, because I am always researching to do interviews and how technology is improving around the world. And Israel is right now, you could say, the leading country in technology, I would say, for everything. And it has been, obviously, not now, but for many, many decades, but now it's even more powerful. Many people say it really can even win against Silicon Valley, and many people from Israel works at Silicon Valley. I would like to know why Israel is so important in leading technology in the world today.
Oh, well, I have a very, very simple, I think, answer to this beautiful question. First, you're right. Israel today is, I think, second to Silicon Valley. And I think as an Israeli, I'm very proud of it. I believe that, one of the main reasons for that, I always, when people ask me this, I always ask, the other side, if they know what is the biggest and most important, by no doubt and by all means, startup that came out of Israel. Do you know?
I would like you to tell me.
It's a catching question. I'm warning you, Alvaro. It's a catching question. Do you know what is, by all doubt, this is the biggest, most important startup that came out from Israel? Everyone will agree with me. Do you know what it is? Or you want me to tell you?
I would think what you're saying is the one who is watching us from above.
Well. We can debate on this one, but what for sure we cannot debate of is Israel itself. Israel itself as a country is relatively new, right? It's a relatively new country. It's less than 100 years. We're talking about 75 or 80 years. That's it. And during that time, everything happened so fast. So Israel as a country, I believe, is a startup. And I think that type of mentality and mindset of the people here that came here just 80 years ago to build the country out of the desert, that type of mentality and mindset, as came to their children and grandchildren, and that's the reason why you find so many entrepreneurial projects and ventures going on from here.
Yeah, I have to agree. And how many people? What is the population in Israel?
Yeah, well, there's about 8 million people, the whole country. It's yes, for those of you listening, it's about the size of New Jersey. Yeah, that's it. It's from east to west, it's about half an hour drive, even less than that some areas. And from north to the south, it's about 6 hours drive, I would say. That's the whole country. I would say not in the best neighborhood in the world, but it is what it is.
It's unbelievable. It's an example to follow everywhere, I have to say.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the escalation of your business and the future of your technology and your company. Where do you see it going? I know you have places that you have made accessible also in the United States, not only in Israel. So where do you see your technology going?
So I think one of our main challenges, as I mentioned earlier, is penetrating international markets. We are very first hoping, and secondly, I think it's something that we find it happening every day almost. Looking to work together with our community. So we have a very nice WhatsApp and Facebook groups with our communities, and also we're communicating through emails all the time with users from all around the world that asking us to come and be active and be more present in their area. So in other words, turning their neighborhood, their areas into more accessible environments. So we're looking to work very closely with our users about it. And again, I welcome anyone who's listening to us right now and interested to, turning the supermarket next to him or any other location that is interested about into accessible to contact us and think together with us how we can do it. We've already managed to do that in several locations worldwide. You mentioned the USA, that's right. Also in the UK, in England. We've done it in Czech Republic already. We're now doing it in Brazil a little bit. So, and in France, of course, we've done it several times. So I think, it's all about working together with our community. It takes some time. It has its, challenges and barriers. But we have a very strong belief that first in our community, we have a very strong belief in that, in a mutual sharing value. And secondly, I think the overall awareness in the world of having this type of solutions is increasing. It's not there yet, but it's also increasing. So that's a good sign. I always, Alvaro, I'll give you a short example. In terms of online accessibility, I always give the online accessibility of website as a reference. So the technology of turning websites into accessible websites is existing, for many years, but the web wasn't accessible. It's still not not all of it, but it wasn't as it is today, just for up to the last recent, years, 2 or 3 years. And the reason for that is because there wasn't awareness and there was no regulations around it. And when that came, the awareness came, and then the regulation came, the web became much more accessible than it was 5 or more years ago. I'm sure you can agree with me. So we believe that the same process will happen with the physical space. Once the awareness around it will be there, and it's getting there, slowly but steady and slowly to there. Once the awareness will be there, the regulation will align with that, and then basically the physical landscape.
Now, Idan, we have a lot of listeners in the US. Can you tell us some of the venues that you have now made accessible?
Yes, so we can think, for me, as I said in the beginning, we truly consider it just like a ramp. So every place that is open for the public and have a ramp for wheelchairs, in my opinion, should also have a ramp, as we call it, for people with orientation challenges. So we're talking about shopping malls, we're talking about small restaurants sometimes, we're talking about universities, we're talking about hotels. Hotels, by the way, are by definition locations that are unfamiliar for anyone.
Right?
No, nobody lived there. So hotels, hospitals. Hospitals can be a very stressing environment in general. So if we can reduce that anxiety even a bit, that's I think very important. Government buildings, whether if it's municipalities, cities hall, and others, libraries, theaters, and it can go on and on, even to office buildings. We've done several office buildings. If one of our listeners is employed in a company that care about, I would say, it might be interesting to interest them with having such a solution for future employees and for themselves. And I can, in Israel, I'm very proud of our success here because there was, so many locations that have already turned into accessible. Our Israeli users are using it on a daily or weekly basis, and it's really great to see it. And to give an example, all of the McDonald's stores in Israel are accessible with it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it sounds like a small environment, right? Not too difficult, but for many people, it could be a maze. So knowing where the counter is, knowing where the exit, where the sitting area, where the restrooms are, that's very, very powerful. And it's also a statement. Once they do it, others are following, and we see that happening all the time. Largest supermarkets, largest shopping malls also. So, yeah.
Now, Idan, something comes to mind. Two things. One is hotels. I want to elaborate a little bit on hotels, and also what about subway stations, train stations? So what can you tell us about those and airports too? Those three.
So yeah. So I'm happy you brought them up. So I will start with the hotels, just because it's easier for us as it is today. But for hotels, as I said, it's by definition an unfamiliar environments. And it's also in many cases an environment where people from many different languages are visiting.
Right.
So the language barrier become even stronger in many cases. And another important point of view on hotels is that it's one of those sectors that there is a really big ROI for the hotel itself. And why is that? So, for example, if an Israeli family is coming to a visit in Colombia, for example, as 20 family members, and one of these 20 family members is blind, the whole family will prefer in a hotel that is accessible for that family member. So they won't need to go together with him anywhere. So the hotel is basically earning not just this person, he's earning the whole family, the whole 20 people who came to a few nights. So the ROI is even bigger for them, the opportunity is even bigger for them than other sectors. Now, you've mentioned travel. In terms of travel, I cannot elaborate too much, but what I can say is that we've learned in the past 2 or 3 years that the way to the desired destination is one of the barriers or one of the most unsolved obstacles, I would say, for many of our users. And I'm mostly talking actually about buses. Also trains, but I think mostly buses, finding the bus station, identifying the bus that is coming, if that's the right line or not, timing around that, and everything involved with this. I can tell you, what I can tell you is that we're currently putting much more focus on this. We had a few, I will call it thinking breakthroughs in the past few months, and many parts of it are already under development. While the app is already in some countries, and iPhone in some countries are already allowing our users to find all the bus stations through the app and navigating there and hearing what lines are coming through those bus stations. We are planning to do way more than that. So that's about it. And with you mentioned airports. With airport, for me, it's almost when you think about it. I just came from the US a few days ago, so I've been having a connection in Istanbul, and I was just thinking there also in the airport, it looked like a very beautiful shopping mall in a way.
Right.
So that's right. That you have your gates and you have the security gates. That's fine, but in the overall setup, it's just like a very large shopping mall. And so since we already have many experience with shopping malls, bigger and smaller, for us it's almost the same use case in that manner. So yeah.
So you're also gonna work with airports?
Yeah, definitely. We already done some airports here in Israel, but again, for me, the airport is as a layout is at least as for today, is very alike as just any other any other public space or specifically a shopping mall. There's no other adjustment that we've done so far with airports. I believe once we'll finish up a few of our developments with travel in general, we'll have more adjustment into that also for airports.
Well, Idan, it has been wonderful having you
for
on.
me as well.
Before I let you go, do you have any final thoughts about what you are doing in the world?
First, I want to thank you as well. It was also a pleasure for me and a big honor. I think one thing that is I think important for everyone who's listening so far. If we never ask for the world and act for the world to be accessible, there is no way he will be accessible. So I encourage everyone who's listening to ask for it wherever they go. I will give you a short anecdote, if I may,
Sure.
just to finish up a short anecdote and story. Usually, when I meet with users or with friends who are blind in restaurants, I always ask them to ask for a braille menu. Now, every time I do that, they joke at me and say, "Hey, there's no chance that they will have a braille menu." Right? Have you
Yeah.
them? Do you have them in Colombia? I guess not. Right? Braille menu.
I would say maybe one or two places in the whole country.
You see, yeah. So that's in most countries. That's in most countries. So
Yeah.
always when I ask if they can, I tell my friend Italy, how about you ask for a braille menu? She always joke, or anyone else joking at me and say there is no chance that they will have a braille menu. And you know what I answer them? I answer them that I know, and that's exactly the reason why you should ask for it. Because if you won't ask for it, there is no chance that they will ever have it.
Right.
Once you create the demand from bottom up, there is better chances that one day, if everyone will do it, one day you will find more restaurants that having it. So this is just an example of if you're looking to have the supermarket or favorite store or shopping mall or hotel having a wayfinding, audible wayfinding system, don't forget to ask for it. Don't forget to demand it. Just if you do that, there's more chances that it will actually happen down the road.
Very well said, Idan. Very well said. Now, again, please tell us, how can people find all the venues that are accessible worldwide?
Sure.
How can they contact you?
Sure. So first, just download the app.
Yes.
Again, it's free iPhone and Android, and you'll be able to find all the locations in the app. Under the settings, you'll be able to define for what the distance. It could be unlimited, and then you'll find all the places in the world, or limited to your area, and you'll find just the locations in your area. So this is where you can find all the locations. Contacting us is very simple. You can do it directly, personally to me. It's Idan, IDAN, at RIGHT-HEAR.com. So you can do it directly there. I'm also active on Twitter. So just look for Idan and then _Meir. We also have Right Here app on Twitter. So it's handled Right Here app on Twitter, as well on Facebook. And we're trying to be as accessible and responsive as possible. So I'm very looking forward to hear our listeners and communicating with them.
Well, Idan, thank you again so much. And tell me, how do I say thank you in Hebrew?
That's easy. Toda. Toda.
Toda?
Toda. Exactly.
Okay.
Toda to you. It was a very pleasure for me.
Thank you so much. And for our listeners, remember you can email me if you want to be on the show at lowvisionbureau@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at lowvisionbureau. And it's been very exciting to having the first company from Israel on my show. I have had many people who are Jewish on my show, thankfully, but this is the first company from Israel, so I'm very, very honored about that. So, well, that's it for tonight. I want to say thank you to all the listeners, and this is Alvaro from LVB SHOW saying good night.